Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Balanced Living Unfiltered. I am your host for today, Dr. Rebecca M.J. Brown. This is a bonus episode. So normally we post once a month, but I thought this episode was really necessary. So today we are diving into a topic that is weighing really heavily on, I think, a lot of us, the current political climate. So it's having a profound impact on everyone's mental health. There is an issue with our pursuit of equity and equality and our quest for balance in these turbulent times. And I think it is important to address the fact that political climate is a part of a lot of our wellness. A lot of us don't have the privilege to not pay attention. So this discussion today is about acknowledging the toll that political unrest has on everybody, but particularly those in marginalized communities. So if you've been feeling anxious or overwhelmed or even just completely detached and numb, just know you're not alone. And today's episode is for us to explore it together. Okay. So let's get to it. I am fucking exhausted. I am genuinely bone deep, soul level fucking exhausted. And I know I'm not alone in this. I talk about it with people all the time. But how are we supposed to keep functioning like everything is fine when the world is on fire? It's falling apart. I don't get it. I don't get how we're supposed to do it. And my entire job is mental health. Every time I open my phone, it's like a punch to the gut. And there's always another crisis, another rights violation, another politician treating human lives like they're pawns in this weird, fucked up dystopian chess game. And somehow we're just supposed to go to work and answer emails. It doesn't make sense to just pretend that this existential dread a lot of us are feeling, this pit in our stomachs is just like a little fucking indigestion, nerves. No, that's not what this shit is. It's not just stress. We're going through political trauma. We are going through chronic, unrelenting, inescapable fucking trauma. And it's not like we can just take a weekend off from society imploding and democracy slowly fading into fascism. The world doesn't pause so we can catch a break. And it's not just happening to me. It's not just happening to you. This is systemic. I'm looking right now at a couple of notes I took, and the American Psychological Association did a survey, giving us data to prove something that we all already know. But back in 2016, 52% of adults reported that the election was a significant source of stress. Half of Americans. All right. And we're fast forwarding to now, and 69%, which is more than 2/3 of the population, is walking around with anxiety. So congratulations. We're all part of this cult of stress. So I want to share what stress does, because it's not just oh, I'm worried. No. It is, I can't sleep because my brain won't shut the fuck up. It's, I can't focus because, oh, look, another catastrophic headline is on my phone. It's tension headaches and your jaw being clenched shut and your shoulders being up to your ears like you're the fucking hunchback of Notre Dame, right? It causes gut issues. My IBS has been going crazy because cortisol, the stress hormone, just wreaks havoc on your digestive system. And it's crazy because our brains are wired to handle stress. That's what they're meant to do. But it's supposed to be short bursts. Oh, look, there's a bear, right? Your fight or flight kicks in and you run. And then your body resets. But we're not dealing with a fucking bear. We're dealing with a 24-hour news cycle. That's basically a bear on a treadmill that never stops with no cool down period, just bear running after you forever. Crazy. So if you're thinking, well, maybe I'm just bad at coping. No, you're not. This isn't a you problem. This is what happens when humans live in a constant state of hypervigilance. It's bad for us. Our nervous systems are not designed for this. It's like trying to run your car at full speed without stopping for gas. You're gonna break down eventually. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, one of the worst parts is the feeling of guilt. I feel guilt for not doing enough. I feel guilt when I turn off the news because I need a break. I feel guilt when I just feel numb because I've hit an emotional limit and I feel like I should take on every global crisis, right? Because you can't be emotionally available for everything and also pay rent and do your job and, you know, doing little shit like staying hydrated. Like, it's ridiculous. And yeah, all this stress, the anger, the burnout, it's a completely rational response to an irrational world. Your body and mind are doing exactly what they're supposed to do when you feel unsafe. And just because it's normal, it doesn't mean it's sustainable. I mean, we can't live like this indefinitely. I don't know what to do, but I'm starting by just acknowledging it, right? Recording this podcast, naming it, saying it out loud. I am overwhelmed because the world is overwhelming, and I don't view that as weakness. I view that as honesty. So if you're listening to this thinking, holy shit, Dr. Brown is losing it. Yeah, I am. Because pretending to be calm when everything is on fire is crazier than admitting it. So yeah, just know that if you are a mess, you are in good company. Okay, so now that we've established that everyone is stressed and freaking the fuck out, I just need to talk about the fact that the whole situation is even more infuriating because it's not hitting everyone the same way. Like, yeah, political unrest affects all of us, but let's not pretend that we're standing in the same storm with the same umbrella. Like, some people are getting drenched while others are chilling under a heated canopy sipping a latte. You know, if you're in a marginalized community, if you're queer, if you're Black, if you're brown, if you're trans, if you're disabled, if you're an immigrant, oh my God, there's so many different minorities. Political decisions aren't just fucking stressful, they're existential. It's not just about being upset over a policy. It's about wondering if that policy is going to erase your rights, your healthcare, your safety, or even your fucking existence, which is wild to me. And what's really maddening to me is seeing society expect people to handle this with grace. Like, oh, you're terrified for your human rights. Just meditate and drink some herbal tea. Like, I'm sorry, self-care is not the answer. No amount of deep breathing is going to fix systemic oppression. Another statistic, in 2015, 48% of white adults with mental health conditions received care, compared to 31% of Black Hispanic adults and 22% of Asian Americans. So, I mean, those numbers, people who are dealing with the most systemic stress have the least access to care. It's not a coincidence. That's by design. A study from the Trevor Project found that in states with anti-trans laws, there's been a 72% increase in suicide attempts among trans and non-binary youth, age 13 to 17. 72%. That's not an abstract number. That is kids, that is children whose mental health is being directly attacked by this legislation. Oh, God. And before anyone says, well, that's just politics, no, that's people's lives. It's not just politics when policies are deciding whether you have access to healthcare, whether you can marry the person you love, whether you're legally recognized as a person, as who you are. I personally feel this really deeply. As a queer Jewish person, it's really hard not to see history repeating itself. I mean, the rhetoric, the scapegoating, the othering, it's not subtle. It's exhausting to exist in a world where parts of your identity are constantly up for debate. Like it's some intellectual exercise instead of your actual sucking life. And there's this expectation that people from marginalized communities should be resilient. Like, oh, look, you've survived systemic racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism. Well, you're so fucking strong. And yes, they are. But it would be even better if they didn't have to be resilient. Resilience isn't a personality trait. It happens when people are forced to adapt to constant adversity, exhausting adversity. And while resilience is a beautiful, wonderful thing, the fact that it's necessary just infuriates me. No one should have to build their entire identity around surviving oppression. People should be allowed to be fragile. And the gaslighting is crazy. I mean, when people speak up about these systems, there's always someone ready to dismiss it. Like, oh, it's not that bad. You're being too sensitive. Just politics, you know? It's not politics when it dictates if you can live safely. So yeah, we're all stressed, but some people are carrying generations of trauma on top of that. Political unrest doesn't just open old wounds. For many of those wounds didn't even have a chance to heal in the first place. And I don't have a solution for that. Your therapists don't have a solution for that, because the solution isn't self-care. The solution is a systemic change. But in the meantime, while we fight for that change, we also need to acknowledge the toll it takes on people's mental health. So I just want to validate for people out there, you're not broken because you're struggling. You're not too sensitive. You're living in a world that's hostile to your existence, and you are still here. That is not weakness. That's defiance. And sometimes just existing and pushing on is the most radical act we can do. Whew. Right. Yeah, so now that we've established that the world is on fire, some people are being burned alive while others are just uncomfortable with smoke in the air, you know? I am at the part of a podcast where normally I would give you solutions, right? Like, here's your 5-step guide to inner peace while democracy crumbles. Yeah, no, there's not a self-help path that magically fixes the existential dread that comes from watching basic human rights being treated like a debate. You know, there's no meditation app that's going to stop the systemic oppression. And if one more person tells me to just stay positive, I might actually implode on myself. But I do believe, and if I didn't believe this, you know, I wouldn't have the company that I do. I do believe in every situation you can find some sense of balance, and not the balance that's like, oh, I'm zen and serene all the time. I'm talking about balance that allows you to be furious and exhausted and say, I'm still here. So toxic positivity is not the move. We're not supposed to look on the bright side every time. That's not real. The bright side of this is what? We haven't fully descended into fascism and dystopia yet. No, that's a low bar. Toxic positivity is just emotional gaslighting dressed up in a fucking Pinterest quote. And it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel scared. Stop pretending like it's not. Those feelings are valid. The goal isn't to suppress them, it's to process them without letting them consume you. So the way I've been thinking of it is like this. My emotions are passengers in a car. Anger is there, fear is there, but I won't let them drive. They're terrible drivers and they'll run me straight into a fucking hole or a ditch. So I'm trying to control what I can, right? We all want to stay informed, but there's a difference between being informed and being immersed in constant crisis, right? Doom scrolling is not activism or helpful. It is self-harm that is disguised as productivity. So some things you can do, pick 2 times a day to check the news, once a day. That's it. Curate your sources. Not every headline deserves your mental energy. Unfollow accounts that only feed your anxiety without offering any actual action steps. You don't have to carry every tragedy in your heart to prove that you care. And the self-care industry is going to tell you, buy a candle, take a bubble bath, manifest good vibes, But I think the thing that is going to be most effective for all of us is other people. We're not meant to be individualistic. We're not meant to carry this stuff alone. We're meant to be in community. So find your people, find the ones that get it, the ones who you can text after a bad news day and say, I hate everything. And they'll reply saying, want to scream into the void together. Right. But it's not just about bending. It's about knowing you're not the only one feeling this way. There is power in collective grief and rage and collective hope. One of the most paralyzing things about political unrest is a feeling of hopelessness, I think, and helplessness. Like, what can I do? I have too much on my plate already. How am I supposed to be an activist, right? I get it. I do. I'm not going to protests. I'm not doing a whole lot, but I'm doing something. We can't fix everything, but we can do something. So we can do things like donate $1 to a cause you care about. Every dollar adds up, right? Calling your representative. It's awkward, do it anyway. I can say I haven't done that, but I have signed protests, right? Like the petitions. Signing petitions, it is something, right? And that takes 2 seconds online. The thing that I am doing to make me feel like I am a part of this is having the hard conversations with people in my personal life who need to hear the hard conversation. And I mean, I'm hosting on a podcast, but even action doesn't erase the anxiety. I'm still anxious, but it gives it somewhere to go. It transforms it from I'm feeling powerless into I'm participating, and the smallest thing counts. The smallest thing counts, you guys. Seriously. Don't belittle yourself by thinking your small action doesn't matter. It does. The other thing to think about is that rest isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. Rest isn't optional. It's not a reward you get after you've done enough. It's a part of this work, Just existing in this that's funny. Just existing in this mess. It's a marathon, right? You wouldn't expect a runner to sprint the whole way without a water break. Rest is your water break. And rest doesn't always mean sleep. It can mean disconnecting from your screen for an hour. It can mean going outside and touching grass, right? Listening to music that makes you feel something other than rage. And rest can be doing something creative, even if it's terrible. Bad doodles are still creative. They're valid. Rest doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you're preserving your energy so that you can keep going. The messy truth of it all is that you can be curious and hopeful. I am. You can be heartbroken and still laugh at dumb memes, you know? You can be overwhelmed and find moments of peace. That things can coexist. Life is a dumpster fire, but you're allowed to find joy, connection, and meaning in the middle of it. That, to me, is how I survive it. And I hope it's how you can survive it, you know? So, all right. I feel like I've ranted enough. Yeah, so we've unpacked the rage. We've talked about the messiness of balance. But I want to land on something that feels like both a challenge and an invitation. To me, rest is resistance. You know, rest isn't laziness. It's not indulgence. It's not selfish. It's a radical act. Audre Lorde said, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It's self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. And I don't think she was wrong. Because the reality is, burnout is the enemy of progress. If we're exhausted, if we're overwhelmed, if we're checked out, we can't do anything, right? And systems that thrive on oppression, they want us burnt out. They want us to be too tired to connect with each other. They want us to believe that we're powerless, but I don't think we are. I can't believe we are. And that's why this isn't about self-care. It's about community. It's about showing up for each other when we're tired. It's about knowing when to take a break and when to get back in, and understanding that rest and resistance aren't opposites. I think they're part of the same cycle. The classic quote, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You also can't advocate for justice on an empty tank, you know? So take the damn nap. I am. Close the laptop, unplug for the day, and then come back swinging, you know, because I refuse to believe that we're too broken to fix things, or we're too small to make a difference, or that this is just the way things are. I don't think we're broken. I think we're tired. I don't think we're small. I think we've forgotten that standing together is powerful. And this isn't just how it is, it's how it is right now. And it can change. And, you know, even if you're listening to this and thinking, I don't have the fight in me, that's okay. Rest and heal and take care of yourself. The fight is going to be here when you get back, you know? It's okay to be exhausted and take a step back. But if you're listening and thinking, I'm angry and I'm ready, but I don't know where to start, again, start like so small. Start so small, because that's, you know, check in with yourself after and see if that was sustainable for you. Share one post that raises awareness about an issue you care about. Not to go viral, right? Just to keep the conversation alive in your community. Have an honest conversation with someone in your life, even if it's weird, even if it's just saying, hey, I've been thinking about this, you know. Sign a petition. It takes a minute, maybe less. Send one email to an elected official. There's templates on Google that you can literally copy and paste. Donate $1 to an organization, just $1. Small donations add up, you know. If you hear something harmful, even, you know, a small one, even a small comment, just correct that person's bias. Try, you know, learn one new thing about an issue. Educating yourself is activism too, you know, at least that's what I think. And maybe you have a friend who is more involved. Maybe your act can be helping that person, watching their kids while they go to a protest, or sending them a "you're doing great" text. These things can feel significant, but they're not. Movements are built on millions of tiny actions. I'm not doing big actions. I don't have it in me, but I can do tiny ones. I think a lot of us get stuck in the trap of thinking that change comes from a big dramatic moment, but I know the more I think about it, the more I think it comes from ordinary people doing small things, but just consistently. Um, so yeah, I'm not going to end this with a neatly packaged inspirational quote because life isn't neat. This is messy. This is hard. This makes me want to scream, you know. But if you scream into the void, sometimes the void screams back. And when it does, you will realize you weren't alone in this fight. So yeah, rest when you need to, fight when you can. But don't forget that you matter. Your voice matters. Your existence matters. And that's balance. So thank you guys for sticking with me through this emotional roller coaster of an episode. If you felt seen, if you felt heard, if you felt like, holy shit, Dr. Brown's losing her mind a little bit, good. Because none of us are in this alone. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Yell about it in your group chat, send it to your coworker who's also quietly panicking. And I'm still, until next time, let's just stay angry, but stay hopeful and keep living whatever your version of balance is.